Here we are. Hey everyone. Wow, look at all of the beautiful, just like watching comments and people rolling in. It's amazing to see everyone joining for another Spirit Stream. Sorry I missed a week. Last week things were a little busy over here. But today I wanted to pop in to talk about something that happens to all of us. Something that's really life takes you by surprise sometimes, you know? You're going along, things might be flowing one direction, and suddenly one thing can happen and change your trajectory, put you on an entirely different course. And I wanted to talk about this because sometimes it's really difficult to handle. Sometimes it's very difficult and confusing, and there's this question of like, what do you even, how do you react when life gets you down? How do you be? Especially if you identify with some sense of spirituality, there's often this idea that spiritual people don't get upset. Spiritual people maintain a elevated vibration no matter what. There's always this, you know, this the preconceived idea of what it means to be spiritual. And oftentimes that, you know, that leads to a sense of toxic positivity, which you might remember we recently did a spirit science episode all about. So if you're new to that subject, definitely go and check out the toxic positivity episode of Spirit Science. And I wanted to talk about cycles in this spirit stream so far. I think that the nature of cycles is really significant to look at how there is a natural ebb and flow to life, like riding a wave. And just as much as when we're on the up and things are flowing really smoothly, so too can there be drops and dips. And sometimes it happens over a long period of time. Over the course of a week or a few weeks or a month, you just start feeling weird and not so right. And other times you're on the right, you're rising up, and then you drop off of a cliff. And things can take a dramatic turn. Things can go down. And that's okay in that it happens. Like, not to, say, well, whoever designed this freaking universe sucks, because that shouldn't happen. It does. We're existing here in this sort of human, dense, physical dimension, this physical reality of ours, and we're having to learn how to navigate it, and we're having to learn, this is part of our lessons here in 3D. If we want to get to a higher D with different rules, different cosmic laws, we've got to understand how this D works, how this dimension exists, and what are the rules of it. So the first thing is cycles, right? Up and down, ebb and flow, yin and yang. And that's a natural thing. It's a natural part of life. And if we can learn to get into a mindset of riding the wave, of actually perceiving the cycles and not just being thrown about by them, and, one moment you're happy and everything's great, and then the next moment, something happens and you're upset and you're angry or you're tired or whatever it is, and just going from happy to sad to angry to happy, excited and angry again, and then really it's just like all over the place. Being able to perceive the cycles, being able to perceive the waves is of the utmost significance, because if we can see that we're in a cycle, then it allows us to separate our higher self from our lower self, like being able to perceive from more of a soul perspective and the ego's perspective. So you can feel like crap. You can feel like you're going through the muck and the gunk and the, oh my gosh, this is so frustrating. And you can also just as well have the higher awareness and be like, oh, I see what's happening here. I was here and now I'm down here. And when you do that, it gives you a sense of ability of responsibility that you can sort of, from that soul place, kind of steer yourself. You're like, yeah, okay. Like from a higher awareness, you know what? I feel like I don't feel very good, and okay. And let's try and do something about it, right? Instead of just being in the feeling, again, feel it. Don't bury it or cover it up, or toxic positivity that, because we can now use toxic positivity as a verb. But if you're feeling that way, be authentically in it, but also try and observe a higher awareness of the circumstance, of the situation. And ask yourself, from that perspective, you can give yourself a moment of self-reflection, like, how am I participating in, how am I creating this experience for myself? Maybe on some level, right, we've actually manifested whatever has happened. Maybe on another level, it feels like it's been done to us. And maybe regardless of either of that, you're perpetuating the feeling. You're perpetuating the experience of feeling the way that you're feeling. And if you can identify that you are, right, like, wow, man, like maybe, like, let's say something happened, but like you were you're kind of in a lower energy state. Well, like, have you been taking care of your body? And how's your state of energy? How is your personal energy today, right? Because if you can practice moving your energy, one example is like, actually, they're way down here on the bottom of the list. I was going to talk about this at the end, but it's kind of coming up early. Drinking water, moving your body, meditating, talking to someone, right? Like moving the energy can help facilitate a change, right? But we have to be able to take responsibility in order to do that first. At the very least, this is me when I can't talk right. Taking responsibility for our own energy and saying, okay, yeah, I feel like crap, and what can I do about it? Like, let me go and like take a shower. Let me go and like get myself cleaned up, because that will allow my own personal body of consciousness to function a little bit more cleanly, a little bit more clearly, with better flow, right? So that's kind of what that's about, right? Don't play the blame game. Because the moment that we ascribe all of the personal responsibility to it's his fault and her fault and their fault and the Illuminati's fault and everybody's freaking fault, that my life is terrible. The moment that you do that, you put yourself in a position where there's nothing you can do about it. There actually is nothing, like if it's everyone else's fault, then it's up to them to fix it. And it's up to them to fix it, then that makes you a victim because you are disempowered. So the question is that a reality that you want to create? Is that who you want to be? Is a victim floating through life blaming everybody else for your personal energy and your attitude towards the world? And one of the best things that you can do for yourself then would be taking responsibility for your own personal energy and not blaming anybody else but yourself for how you're feeling. Because the moment that you can actually do that, you put yourself in a position of creative discovery. You can learn something new. You can create something different because you have the control. And one of the things that I wrote here I wanted to speak on too was like sometimes lack of information leads to fear of the unknown. And fear is the mind killer, right? Like when you, let's say, well, okay, this one specifically is coming up for me, and I think that I wanted to share it because it's a very personal story to what I'm going through right now. Because, true story, I wanted to talk about this today because this is what I'm going through, and I was thinking if I could give myself some advice, like if I was separating my ego and my spirit, and I could give myself some advice, this is what I would say. And I just wrote down all these notes, and I got them here. And I felt like it's been a while since we did a spirit stream, and this is probably a pretty good subject to get into here because this is not uncommon for everybody. So my little story has to do with a car accident that I got into about a week and a half ago or so. And turns out I had really great insurance. But it also turns out this afternoon, I got a phone call from my insurance company saying, hey, listen, something's weird. And we're pulling out of your policy for the most part, unless we talk to you. But the guy on the phone, he left a voice message saying, well, but I'm leaving the office right now, and we won't be able to talk till tomorrow. And I'm in this state, being like, oh my god, like what? So, I missed this phone call. I can't get in contact with them, and there's no way I can collect more information. So I don't have any information. And I'm like, am I just now going to be suddenly owing however many thousands of dollars to repair my vehicle? Maybe. I really have no idea. And of course, it's all my responsibility anyways. I'm the one who slipped off the road because, it's a very mountainous, snowy, slippery roads, and it was my bad. But the whole thing is just it left me in this feeling of oh, shit, and it I don't know what that phone call is going to be. Maybe he's oh, I just need this document from you and you're fine. But the way that it all sounded left me in this state of kind of fear and panic for a moment. And so with my lack of information, my mind started coming up with all sorts of stories of what is there, what's going to happen? You know what I mean? It's a very confusing sort of circumstance. And in that moment, I just thought I have to change my energy because I noticed that I wasn't. I was having an all right day. I was being very productive, and then suddenly, just straight down, And so from that moment, I decided to clean myself up, get my energy in order. Drank a bunch of water and then kombucha, and now I'm on to vitamin C juice, basically orange juice, to just try and supercharge my energy. And I'm also going to try and go for a run after this if it's not too dark. But here's the thing is what I wrote here is fear is the mind killer. You don't know what tomorrow will bring, but fear will make things worse because it will tilt your experience. It will actively facilitate you just imagine, it's in this circumstance, at least for me, I could spend the next 12 to 24 hours being completely panicked and terrified and feeling awful, or just surrendering and trusting to whatever is going to be happening, right? It's completely up to me to choose, because I don't know. I don't have the information. I don't know what's going to happen. And the perception and the belief, the fear that I'm screwed, you know, that whole feeling of like, oh shit. I mean, it'll be fine in the grand scheme of things. It's like not like I'm dying or anything, right? It is whatever it is, and I'll work it out no matter what. But the point being that it's one of those things where I'm still actively creating the experience that I'm about to have, or that I'm currently having and experiencing. And so I wanted to like kind of convey that really for anybody who's riding the waves up and down. Sometimes, you know, it's like maybe there's like a relationship thing of like this sort of potential of a breakup, or you like you're like seeing someone, you haven't heard from them in a long time. And there's this like, oh, are they just ghosting me now, right? And there's this fear of like, you really have no idea. Are you going to let it destroy you? You know, it's just another example of how this might apply in other circumstances. Same with first time. I can imagine like the first time, I was thinking back to when I first applied for my first job, and I like turned in resumes everywhere. If I didn't hear from any place anywhere for like a week, then it's like, nobody wants me. You know what I mean? So when this whole thing happens, when you're riding the wave and you're noticing that you're on the downswing, or life takes a turn, I want to say that it's a cue for us to veer up. Because at the end of the day, our energy, our personality, our vibration is still creating the experience that we're having. Our choices, our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, all of it are weaving together to create the reality that we're actively experiencing. And if we can recognize that we're playing a part in in creating our own experience, then we can use that as like a cue, like a mental cue, a trigger for us to sort of alert ourselves to our own energy at a deeper level and veer up. You know, like just be like, oh, we got it. You know, it's like you're in a plane and you're just heading towards the ground, and you're like, oh, wait a second, I can just pull it up, and then it takes up and it goes higher, and then you don't crash. And that's because that's really the thing, is like I could get on the phone with the guy tomorrow and be like, what's the deal? And he's like, oh, my bad, I was looking at the wrong paper. You're good. I'm like, oh, and everything's completely fine. Sometimes we don't know. But clean up your energy. Like at least for myself, that's the advice I'm giving to myself is yes, sometimes things are really difficult and sometimes things are really challenging. And I know for me in this moment, you know, it is like a big question mark. But sometimes things happen in life that are out of our control, that are very frightening. You know, this could have been a trip to the hospital. This could have been an accident with someone else. It wasn't, thank heavens, right? But there could have been something that's very, very frightening or scary or very difficult to go through. And even in those circumstances, you know, being able to recognize your own frequency, your own energy, and just working with yourself, right? That includes being gentle with yourself. Coming to this point here where, once again, it's like drinking lots of water to become clear, moving your body, doing yoga or exercise, right? Meditating, taking some time to just practice some stillness and some inner love and some personal reflection time are all things that can be very helpful, very healing, very supportive, and of course talking to someone, just taking some time to communicate. And so with this circumstance, I've talked with a lot of people over the last few weeks, but today my talking to someone is this. So thanks for listening, everyone. And I'm really looking forward to reading all of these comments, because there's like so many things just flowing in, and I super appreciate everything that everyone is saying. And then of course there's the one person who says this is horrible advice, and I'm like, I mean, I'm sorry if you don't want to help clean up your energy with all of us together. I'm very curious about what you would do. What advice would you give? Please share it in the comments. When you're on the up and down swing, because again, going back to that beginning concept, it is like life goes like it's up and down, and depending on where we've been vibrating for a really long time, we might be like permanently really low, or maybe like generally higher, right? And I think for most people, there are just like natural swings up and down, good and bad, when you're feeling, the different things that you feel. And so I think like for this advice that I have today, or these thoughts that I have today, and I'm both reflecting for myself and things that I wanted to share, is surrender to the mystery. Like, surrender to the unknown, let go and trust. This is something that I've learned a great deal in my plant medicine ceremonies, such as at Rhythmia and just with plant medicine in general, is that there is so much in the universe, in life, that we don't know. There's so much that we are unaware of, and so much that is moving through us that are like subconscious to us, or unconscious to us, are these thoughts and feelings that are steering our lives that we're not even really aware of. Dr. Bruce Lipton, actually one of the foundational and pioneering scientists behind the biology of belief, has demonstrated some amazing things about how our subconscious and unconscious beliefs that we've been programmed with since we were kids are often these like foundational belief systems that are steering our lives so much more than we can possibly realize. We've been programmed and we don't even know it. And if we can reprogram these root programs, these base, ways of identifying ourselves and with the world, then it puts us into a position of being able to actually change everything about our lives. This is even like, we have a course inside of Spirit Mysteries called Spiritual Money Mastery, which is really about changing your relationship with money. And from my personal experience, I can say that this is absolutely true. It's not about like making more money is not about just doing something to make it, but changing the inside first, changing how you feel, changing how you think, how you perceive the energy, the substance that is money, and that's why we made the Spiritual Money movie. And so there has to be some level and some sense of letting go and trusting that happens as well as we go through life and as we go through the experiences that we're having. Like, sometimes things happen for a bigger reason than we can comprehend. For me, even like having the accident in the first place, there was this big cue of seeing that part of the way in which I was living was just a little bit out of alignment. That there's a higher resonance that I can strive for, but what I was doing wasn't really working, and that's okay. I was pushing myself too hard in some ways that I was out of balance, basically. And so there's a hidden lesson. There's sometimes hidden lessons, and we can ask ourselves too, what is the hidden message when stuff happens as you're going up and down, both on the upswing and the downswing? What is the wisdom that is hiding for you? And if we can approach life from that perspective, like striving to learn even in the face of chaos and craziness and or upset and dismay, if we can approach it with a question mark, then sometimes there's a hidden gem in there for us, and something that will profoundly change our lives in a beautiful way if we can work with it, if we can take those seeds and take that wisdom and that information and do something with it, take it into ourselves, transmute it, play with it, learn from it, and grow as a person. Excuse me. And so that pretty much brings us here to the end of everything that I had written. And it seems like there's so much, there's so many comments here, and I'm just like always in awe of everything that's being shared and all of the comments. I've pretty much given up on, for the sake of these particular live streams, there's no way that I can possibly respond to every single one. So it's easier for me afterwards to kind of go through and respond individually to messages and seeing what people are saying. But that said, I did want to kind of end this with saying, like, if you're someone who's feeling this same way, if you're looking for some additional support, or you're feeling like you're very reactive, like this is a very common thing of, something happens in your life and you get triggered, you get very upset, you get angry, you get maybe, emotional within yourself, either very reactive, or you cut off from everything, or you get angry, or whatever it is. If that sounds like you, we created something, basically a transformational experience designed to help you master your reactivity, your emotional states, and your personal vibration. And it's called Esoteric Emotional Mastery. And you'll find a link to that in the comments at the top of this live stream. So if that's something that you're interested in, I would definitely recommend, please go and check out. Just go and click on the thing, watch the video, and see if that's something that resonates with you, because it really is, looking at where we are in the world today. 2020 was such a crazy year. It churned around so much stuff. It churned up everything for everyone. Life, I don't think you can, for like probably a good 90% of civilization and life on this planet, life is different than it was today, than it was pre-2020. In a bigger jump than most years before that. Like the way that we live, the way that we work, the kinds of jobs that we do, how we show up in society is different, because we're not showing up in society as much. We're not going outside as much. We're staying inside and we're wearing masks. What is this? What's happening? Right? And so we're in Jerry from Rhythmia called it the decade of the shift pre-pandemic, and he called it. He so called it. And this is now we're 10% of the way there, right? We're the first year in the decade of the shift, and already it's shaping up to be a very transformational period of time for us as a species. And we're invited. Really, this is an invitation for us to grow, to shift, to change with the times. And we have to evolve. The way that humanity was going before was like a herd of buffalo running towards a cliff. And the pandemic, for good, for better, or for worse, has mixed up the trajectory of that herd, but we don't really have a direction yet, and we're still trying to find a direction. And of course, there's all this conspiracies, and we've talked about that in our conspiracy theory of everything, of where our species is going. But if we take the advice of the wisdom teachers and the sages of history, that in order to change the world, we have to change ourselves, then this is an opportunity for us to be the change that we want to see in the world. And in order to do that, we have to look within. We have to take responsibility for our vibration. We have to ask ourselves, what is my soul calling me to do? And if we are finding ourselves in the position of needing additional support with our emotional states, with our minds, with getting our hearts balanced, if we're finding our energy is super erratic, check out Esoteric Emotional Mastery, because this is what this was designed to do, to help you take all of this, this is of your vibration going all over the place, and harmonize it within yourself so that you become a balanced, more ascended being, and more capable of bringing your love, your light, your truth, and your service to this world. So thank you. Thank you very much for watching. I am so looking forward to reading all of these comments. There's so many of them. It's crazy. And with that, please be blessed. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you next time on the Spirit Stream. Toodles.